Okay, good morning everyone, and Chazak, Baruch, thank you for joining us on this beautiful Wednesday morning. Hanukkah Sameach and Chodesh Tov U'Vorach. Happy new month to everyone. Chodesh of Tevet. Very special day, Rosh Chodesh and Hanukkah. May Hashem bless us this month and every month with Besorot Tovot, with Refuah Shlema, with Parnasa B'Shefa, with Shiduchim, with children, with success, with safety, with protection, for all of our soldiers, for all of Am Yisrael, all our brothers and sisters wherever in the world they may be. Amen. Okay, my friends, let's jump right in. As we are studying together the beautiful words of the Or HaChaim HaKadosh, Perashat Miketz, let us share some insights, some beautiful nuggets, and let's see how far we go. First idea I want to share with you is interesting Or HaChaim, right here on this pasuk, and it's beautiful to see how sometimes the Or HaChaim flexes his halacha expertise, and he infuses it and he weaves it into the Perashah. The pasuk tells us that Yosef, after he meets Paro and he interprets his dreams for him, and he tells Paro that in his dream God was showing him the future, that there's going to be 7 years of plenty followed by 7 years of famine, and that he's going to have to save food for those 7 years in order to have enough for the 7 years of famine. After all of this, Paro realizes Yosef is brilliant, he's a genius, and he decides to make Yosef the guy in charge. He raises him from jail, from rags to riches. He makes him the viceroy, he makes him the most powerful guy in the country, barring him, okay, except for him, he's the most powerful guy, okay? And this is right here where the Or HaChaim wants to add something. The pasuk says that after he hires Yosef, he raises Yosef, he gives him a wife, he gives him a new name, right? He really is just taking care of Yosef from A to Z. And the pasuk tells us that Yosef now has 2 children. Ul Yosef yulad shnei banim. Yosef has 2 boys. 2 boys. Beterem tavo shnat ha'ra'av. Before the famine begins. Now, over here, Or HaChaim is, he quotes over here the teaching of our rabbis. The pasuk is very careful and precise that he had 2 boys before the famine began. It sounds like if the famine began already, it would be too late to have boys. What does that mean? So he says, yes, Masechet Ta'anit, our rabbis tell us, she'asur leshamesh mitato bishnei ra'av, that you're not allowed to have marital relations during a famine. And Yosef, who had 2 boys, he must have had them before the famine, because the pasuk is here to teach us a halacha that during famine you're not allowed to have children. You cannot procreate. And that explains the Or HaChaim. This is the end of the Gemara. Explains the Or HaChaim that this is actually an interesting halacha that's applied to Yosef, because really eno inyan leYosef, the rule doesn't apply to him, because there is an exception to the rule. Hare adayin lo kiyem periyah v'rebiyah, because we know Yosef did not have children yet. And the Gemara says right there on that page where it says that you're not allowed to have relations during a famine, it does say explicitly, however, chasuche banim, if someone is yet to have children, mishameshin mitotehen bishnot ra'av, then they are allowed to be intimate, to procreate during a famine if they have yet to fulfill the mitzvah. And lo matzinu shaya Yosef banim, we don't find that Yosef had children. These are his first 2 kids, Ephraim and Menashe. And therefore, since he still didn't have any kids, Yosef was allowed to be intimate and to try to procreate. And therefore, the halakha doesn't really apply to him so much. The Torah is using him to teach us a general halakha. That's a concept that you should know. It's called im eno inyan. If it doesn't apply here, then you could be doreshit. You could apply it somewhere else. There's a rule of scriptural teaching that when a law has no application in its own context, we are to assign it its application in another context. So since the prohibition of not having kids didn't apply to Yosef, because he didn't procreate yet, so we apply it to those who have already fulfilled the mitzvah, and that's the halacha that brought down in Shulchan Aruch as well, that during a time of famine, during a time of tragedy for the world, it would not be appropriate for one to procreate. Again, it didn't apply to Yosef, but it applies in general. Now with this, by the way, he says, Lo yikshe ma sheikshu Tosafot. No longer do we have a problem with what Tosfot asks. Tosfot asks a question. Or HaChaim says, but according to what we just said, it's not a question. Let's see the question. The Or HaChaim asks, Tosafot asks, Mi yochevet shenoda ben hachomot. We know that the Jewish people, they come down. Next week we'll read. Yaakov comes down with all of his family to meet and to see his son Yosef after 22 long years. And they come down with how many people? Anyone know how many people came down? 70 people came down. But we know if you do the math, it's only 69. Okay, there was one missing. Who was missing? Now there's different ways of answering this question. But our rabbis tell us, according to one opinion, Yocheved, she was born as we entered. So only 69 came down, but as we entered, the 70th was born. Yocheved, Moshe's mother, was born in between the walls. But asks over here Tosafot, 1 second. If Yocheved, who was Levi's daughter, if she was born 2 years into the famine, that means she was conceived 9 months ago during the famine. That means Levi was procreating. Asks Tosafot, how could he do that? I thought there's a halakha that you're not supposed to procreate during a famine. Answers Tosafot. Now Tosafot gives his answer. He says that it's not really a halakha, it's only extra, and Levi wasn't an extra guy. Levi was a minimum guy. He wasn't a chassid. Or Hayim says, what are you talking about? First of all, it's not an extra, this is a halakha. And furthermore, Levi was a chassid. Yaakov Avinu blesses him on his deathbed. Tumecha ve'urecha leish hasidecha. Excuse me, Moshe Rabbeinu at the end of his life, he says the urim ve'tumim go on the chassid. It's talking about Levi's family. They are hasidim. They are very pious. They are extra people. They're very good people. So therefore, Or Hayim says, I don't like Tosfot's answer. Rather, the answer is like I said, that since Levi only had boys, he didn't have girls yet, so he didn't fulfill the mitzvah of Periyah v'Ribiyah, because we know that ideally, to fulfill the mitzvah in its right way, one needs to have a boy and a girl, like the opinion of Hillel. And therefore, since Levi only had boys, he didn't have girls, he was allowed to continue in his marital relations to try to have a girl, and that's why Yocheved was allowed to be born in the famine. Okay. Anyways, this is very interesting stuff from the Or Hayim on this pasuk. Okay. Moving along to the next Or Hayim. Chapter 42. Vayar Yaakov ki yesh shever b'Mitzrayim. Now Yaakov sees that there are provisions in Egypt. Yesh shever b'Mitzrayim. Vayomer Yaakov lebanav lama tetra'u. Yaakov says to his sons, why do you make yourselves conspicuous? Okay, what does that mean? Lama tetra'u. So over here, Rashi writes, at that moment, the brothers had enough food. Yaakov was not worried about themselves starving. They had food, they were fine. They saved. Yaakov saves, he knows how to save. So he didn't need food. But what he says to his boys, Lama titra'u, don't look. You shouldn't appear to the world around you. Don't flaunt. Don't look, don't show off that you have more than they do. If everyone's going down to get food from Egypt because they're starving, it would be inappropriate for us to show that we're fine. And therefore, for one reason alone, purely for mar'it ayin, only because it looks bad, it looks suspicious, right? You don't want to look like you're wealthier than everyone. Just imagine everyone in COVID is home, everyone's losing money, everyone's struggling, and you are going away, you're on boats, you're on yachts, you're flying, you're touring the world, you're sending pictures, you're putting it up on social media for the whole world. The whole world is suffering and you're flaunting your wealth. That's not appropriate. That's not appropriate. For ayin, that's a lot of ayin hara over there. Okay? And therefore Yaakov says to his boys, Lamma titra'u. Don't appear that you're different from everybody else. If everyone else is going to get food, you get food. Okay. So, Hine Shamati, he says to his sons, I heard, Ki yesh shever b'Mitzrayim, I heard that there's food down in Egypt, and that's where everyone is going. Redu Shama, go down there. Now, Redu, you should know over here is an interesting, subtle hint. The word Redu, go down, is numerically 210, and he was alluding with that word, we're going to be there for 210 years, which is indeed how long we were there for. If you do the math, Yocheved was born when they went down, and then 130 years old she has Moshe, and he's 80 when they leave, so her 130 plus Moshe's 80, 210 years the Jews were in Egypt, the numerical value of the word Redu. So he says to his boys, Redu Shama, go down there, get us food, v'nihyeh velo namut, so that we should live and not die. What does that mean, that we should live and not die? Explains Ora Hayim. What is the repetition? Ki im lo ya'asu ken. If we don't go down, yithayevu benafsham badin ha'elyon. We would be responsible for the loss of our lives in the judgment that we would have to face in heaven. A person is obligated to do whatever they can to preserve their life. A person is not allowed to be negligent. If a person, as an example, if a person smokes, if a person is unhealthy, if a person does things that cause themselves to lose in their health, they cause themselves to abandon their lives, right? If they do it. So not only do they die in this world, but there's going to be an indictment on them in the next world. Why'd you do that? That's unhealthy. Why'd you smoke? Why'd you eat those things? You know it's not good for you. You shouldn't act that way. There's a mitzvah that you have to preserve your life. You have to watch yourself. We have to be responsible. If a person's going to be irresponsible, if a person could careless, go into places that maybe are unsafe, person doesn't care. So Yaakov is saying to his kids, if we don't go get food, we're going to die in this world, we're going to die in the next. And therefore, by putting in our effort, so this is the double reference to death that Yaakov is referring to. I don't want to die in this world physically, and I don't want to die in the next world because of failing to do my due diligence. And therefore, I want you guys to go get food so that we will live here, and for sure we won't get judged up there. Okay, beautiful. Another answer, he says, Nihyeh means let us live comfortably. Velo namut means let us have the bare minimum. And therefore Yaakov is telling his kids, try to get whatever you can. Ideally even nihyeh, ideally try to get a lot. Im yasigu lishbor berebuy, if you could get as much as you can, beautiful. Yihyu kederech ha'hayim, we'll live the way we should. V'im lo, but if you can't get a lot of food, at least we'll have minimum to live so that we don't die from hunger. So this is again another answer to the expression nihyeh velo namut. We will live very comfortably, or at least we won't die to the bare minimum. Okay. Vayerdu, so they go down. And look at how the pasuk refers to them. What should it say? It should say Vayerdu. What should be the title that we give the brothers? Vayerdu bnei Yaakov. The sons of Jacob go down. But look at this. Vayerdu ahei Yosef. The brothers of Joseph go down. Why are we calling them that? What does Yosef have to do with this? They don't have food. That the title. Why are they giving the title? And says Ora Hayim, Perush, Natnu da'atam al ahava lifdoto. They went down as Yosef's brothers. They focused on their brotherhood with Yosef. They took it upon themselves to redeem him, no matter what the price. If they were going to find him, they were going to redeem him. So right now the brothers are going down, and there's a point to remember this. Although they were going to get food, but they also took the opportunity to use it to find Yosef. Okay, they were going to go searching for Yosef. The question is, why did they wait till now to look for Yosef? Why didn't they do it last year, the year before? Why could they only go now to look for him? Now that you're going anyways, you're going to look for your brother? If you weren't going, you wouldn't look for him? Interesting question, no? You guys see the question? Why are the brothers only looking for their brother now? Okay, you know what? We're going down to Egypt. Let's try to look for him. I mean, last year, the year before, for 7 years, why don't you go look for him? You know he's in Egypt, or you think he's in Egypt. It took you 7 years, 9 years, 11, how many years? 22 years. You didn't go look for your brother. Only now they're going to look for him. And you see that they went to look for him. Going to Ora Hayim, Ahei Yosef. The brothers, they went down as brothers. Their goal was not just to get food. Their goal was to get him. So why did they wait till now? But it could be. I just thought about this answer now, today, when I was reading the commentaries. It could be, I think, later on we'll see that Ora Hayim says that they went, let's see the next Ora Hayim. Maybe he'll answer it. He won't answer it exactly, but through what he says, I think we can answer that question. So they went down, Asara, 10 people. Why 10 people? Ulai halchu kulan. Why did they all go? Why did one brother go to get food? So he says, number one, לחשש הרגיל בשני רעב. Because there is a concern during famine. כי תרע עין אדם ברעהו. People, when they're hungry, they become very stingy. They become very animalistic. The worst gets the best of them, right? Evil traits, right? They become corrupt. When there's people are hungry, people are starving. When someone's going to die, they'll do whatever they have to live. They'll steal, they'll kill, they whatever they have to. Therefore, alpat lechem ifshe'u ligzol v'laharog achiyu ish. So the brothers went down together because they were afraid that on the way home there'll be robbers, pirates, bandits waiting to steal the food from them. I'm sure you could imagine. There were for sure people, robbers, waiting outside of Egypt. Everyone that left, they would rob them. They would take food, right? It's like a guy who waits outside of the diamond district. Anyone that comes with a suspicious looking suitcase, you steal the suitcase, right? You know, there's people that have stories. They were followed through the train, a guy mugged them, right? So it happens. So the brothers knew it's very likely someone's going to rob them. And therefore, they went 10 people together this way to defend the food. No one should rob them. Vegam Binyamin, and you should know also Binyamin, Hayurotzim. They even wanted to take Binyamin, the youngest brother. Elashi Yaakov lo ratzah, but we know what happened over there. Yaakov did not want that. And that's what it means, Ve'et Binyamin lo shalach. It says in the Pasuk, Binyamin he didn't send, because he was afraid of something happening to him. Halamata shizulata amzeh. So you see from here that if not for that reason, he would have even sent Binyamin. So he was going to send all of the brothers. For what? Why would you send all the brothers for food? Rather, the answer is like we said, because the brothers will be able to defend each other if, God forbid, there were going to be any bandits. Okay, that's answer number one. Od nir'eh, another answer. Shelo haya mocher Yosef el advar katuv lechol echad. Look at this one. Yosef, everyone's coming to buy food from him, the whole world. Yosef would only sell a certain amount to each individual. Right? There was a quota. You were only allowed to take 2 Xboxes, right? Only 2 per person. You can't take as many as you want. You can't take unlimited amount of bread. You can't buy, 10,000 supply. You got to buy whatever you yourself need. Limited. So therefore, the more brothers that go, the more they could get. Now, Yosef did this for 2 reasons. Echad nigleh ve'echad nistar. One is known and one is more secretive. And look at this. Han nigleh, the known reason, the obvious reason why he only gave, he had a quota on how much everyone could take. Because what would happen is, imagine a guy could buy whatever he wanted. So you would have a few guys coming, they would buy out the supply, and it would hurt everyone. First of all, if everyone out there has food, Yosef doesn't have any more food. He doesn't have the ability to control the prices, right? They'll raise the price to a crazy amount, to a very high number. Yosef realized it's important for him to have the monopoly. So he needs to limit everyone to take the right amount. Okay? Therefore, that's number one. However, there is also a nistar, there is a hidden reason that he limited the purchase to every consumer. He wanted the brothers to all come to him. If there was no limit, only one brother would come and buy for the whole family. But he knew they needed all the brothers to come down. Yosef did this on purpose. So they all stand in front of him. Kemoshekin haya, which is eventually what happened. Kiba'u kulan liknot kol ehad katuv. And everyone had to come and buy however much he needed. So Yosef, unbelievable to see. You're the CFO of this whole country. But he's still making certain decisions because of his personal family interests or concerns. Okay, he wanted all of his brothers to come to him. And therefore, he instituted this rule that you're only allowed to take for yourself. This way all the brothers are forced to come down. Okay. Vayava'u b'nei Israel. So the brothers come down. You see, they calls them over here b'nei Israel. Doesn't call them Achei Yosef. You see? So the question that we asked before was very correct. So they come down, ki haya ra'av. Right? Because there was famine. Asks the Orah Hayim, why does it have to repeat that there was famine? Nitkaven latet ta'am lehabba'im. Shelo tomar hechan huzkeru habba'im. So he says, the brothers, they did something over here very smart. When they came, 10 brothers together, nithakmu le'ahbi atzmam. They hid themselves. Uba'u betoch otam sheba'im lishbor. They came amongst everyone else that was coming down to purchase food. You see, the brothers knew if they come 10 guys into the country, it's going to look very suspicious. They had security. They had people looking out for spies. The brothers, they couldn't just come all 10 together. But because the whole world was coming down, so now if they came, it doesn't look suspicious because everyone's coming. And they hid themselves amongst everyone else. They were incognito. Because there was a famine even in Canaan, so everyone was coming down south to purchase food. This answers our other question. Why did the brothers not come earlier? The answer is because if they would have came earlier, it would have been very obvious that they were coming as a group. It would have looked very suspicious. But now that everyone's coming together because of the famine, now they were able to get away with it and as well hide themselves amongst all the people coming to purchase food from Egypt. Okay. Now, you understand, by the way, why Yosef was in charge of the food. Very tedious work. Why is he the one doing it? Why didn't he appoint somebody? Everyone that wants to buy food comes to Yosef. Why? Have rules and institute a system that, have 1,000 desks, right? And have people coming down and purchasing food, and you have one guy doing it. It's very difficult, very time consuming. Imagine the long lines. It reminds me a little bit of Moshe. When Moshe was alone, standing, judging the people, his father-in-law Yitro said it's not a good idea. And yet here Yosef is the only one doing it. Literally what Moshe did, that Yitro told him not to do. Yosef, many years earlier, is doing that same mistake. Yosef, why are you doing this? It's very time consuming. But the answer is, the Or HaHayim says is because he needed to look for his brothers. And he needed to meet every single person that came down for that sake. Okay. So he sees his brothers. Berush, right? Ra'a otam bir'iyat ahim. He saw his brothers, and when he saw them, immediately he felt a kinship towards them. He felt a love towards them. Ela she'alehem haya mitnakir. But to the outside, he acted evil. He acted like a stranger. He spoke harshly, right? Vayitnakir alehem, right? He didn't want to show that he knew them. Pasuk says, "Vayaker Yosef et Echav." He recognized them. However, him lo hikiruhu, but they did not recognize him. Why did he recognize them, but they did not recognize him? Look at this Or HaHayim over here. Or HaHayim writes, "Hu hikiram." He recognized them. Shehiniham b'hatimat zakan, because they already had full beards by the time he left them. They were fully mature, puberty, everything. So Yosef, he sees the brothers. He sees in them. Same guy almost that he saw 22 years ago, right? When you see an adult from 20 to, right, when you're a big man, it doesn't really change anymore. 20, 50, you look the same. But the difference between 10 or 15 and 35 is very big, right? You still didn't fully mature in your facial expressions and your facial hair. So Yosef recognized his brothers because when he left them, they were bigger than him, but they didn't recognize him. It could be, by the way, that he wouldn't recognize Binyamin either, okay? Because Binyamin was even younger than him. But at least his older brothers he recognized. And over here, the Or HaHayim says something beautiful. Listen to what he says. Umiteva enoshi. Now he says, really, you should know that it's human nature. That when once one of two people becomes aware of the other's identity, let's say I see you and I recognize you. Okay, ever happened to you? That you were in the street, you see someone, you know them, you recognize them, but they don't recognize you. Ever happened to you? Yeah. Yosef, he sees his brothers and he recognizes them. Or HaHayim, look, he's telling you something very interesting, very subconscious over here. He's going deep into the psyche. It's human nature that when one person becomes aware of the other person's identity, Gam belev sheni yit'orer bechinat hizikaron. A spark of memory will automatically be aroused in the second one heart as well. It's a very deep idea. Our rabbis teach us, the pasuk, Kemaim panim lapanim, ken lev ha'adam el adam. The same way water reflects a face to a face, so too one's heart reflected back to him by another. That means that if the same way when I see you, I recognize you, so too my heart can see you. And there's a crazy concept here that he's saying, that hearts communicate with each other. Maybe consciously you're not aware of what's going on, but subconsciously, the heart is talking to the other heart. There's a subconscious conversation going on over here. And once the spark of memory is aroused in the subconscious, it slowly comes to the fore, to the conscious, and they start paying close attention to the eyes, to the forehead, the speech, and the flicker of knowledge that is in their heart continues to grow until they've gained full recognition of their fellow. How amazing is that concept? That means when you see someone and your heart knows them, their heart will start being triggered, and their memory will start to increase until it'll eventually fully come to their conscious mind. Okay? By the way, look how important the heart is. Look how powerful the feelings that we have for somebody else. Sometimes we feel like we could fake it on the outside, right? If I don't like you, on the outside, I could fake it. Hey, how are you? What's doing? What Rahim over here is saying, you can't fake the heart. The heart feels the heart. And subconsciously, if I have negative feelings to someone, subconsciously it's going to be present, and your subconscious will be able to pick it up from my subconscious. Okay? So it's very important to make sure that we work not only on looking nice, but also we should work on making sure that inside we feel the feelings that we are expressing externally. Okay? So why is it here that the brothers didn't recognize Yosef? If Yosef recognizes him and his heart is triggered, so that heart should trigger a domino effect into their heart. But it didn't do that. Why not? He says, the pasuk is coming and tell you, they didn't recognize him. And the reason is, because they see Yosef over here so successful, such an elevated position. They dismissed their subconscious recognition. Subconsciously they felt something being triggered, and they dismissed it right away because they said it's impossible that this little kid that we sold as a slave should be over here in such a high position. Well, Vayiskor Yosef, he recognizes them. He remembers what they did to him. And what does he say? He said, Meragelim atem. You guys are spies. You guys are spies. Letzad shezachara halomot. Why did Yosef do this? Look at it one more time. Look at the pasuk. Pasuk 9. Vayiskor Yosef et halomot. Yosef remembers the dreams. And he says, you're spies. What's the cause and effect of it? What's the flow of the pasuk? He remembered the dreams, so he accused them of being spies. Why should that be? Why should remembering the dreams cause him to accuse them of being spies? Explains Ora Hayim. The Chabi, very good. He says, because he remembered the dreams. What happened when he came to his brothers with those dreams? When he told them, guys, I dreamt X, Y, and Z. What did they tell him back? Him hashdu. They suspected him. Ki sheker befiv. They said, you're lying. You just want to boast. You just want to become a lord over us. Those dreams are just your wishes. So in order, therefore, look at the Ora Hayim. He wanted to atone for their sin. They accused him of being a liar. So to atone, they needed to be accused of being liars. And therefore he said, you guys are thieves. Yosef was doing all of this bekavana, on purpose, to try to help his brothers gain atonement for what they did 22 years ago. So because they suspected him of being a liar in his dreams, so now he had to measure for measure, midah kedeged midah. He had to say to them, you guys, you're liars, you're spies. You're coming not for food, you're coming for a different reason. So the brothers, what do they say? Say, it's not true. We're coming for food. We're all sons of one man. And we're not, usually, spies are not from the same family. You don't pick two brothers to be spies. Usually spies are not related to each other. So they say, we're all from the same guy. We're not spies. He says, no, you're coming to see the nakedness of the land. So they say, you should know that actually we're 12. One brother's not here. And one of them was lost. And that's why we came. we came through different gates to find him. He says, you see that? I told you, you're spies. You spies, I told you. That's exactly what I said. You didn't come for food, you came for a different reason. You came to look for your brother. And what would happen? What would happen if we had your brother but we didn't want to give him back? What would you guys do? They said, well, we would get him by any means necessary. So he says, you see, you guys are here to fight us, you're here to kill us, whatever means necessary, right? River to the sea, we know what that means. We know what that means. We know what those expressions mean. By all means necessary. Okay? So, he puts them in jail. Now, I want to share with you one Orah Hayim over here. Very, very powerful. So now they're in jail, right? Vayomru ish el achiv. They say now to each other. Now we see the brothers, what's going on in the cell, behind the scenes, right? Look what they say to each other. The brothers now, this is the first time that we see them communicating with each other about the sale. It's amazing. We never find them, the whole Torah, speaking about the sale. They sold him, but we don't see what was their response, what was their feelings about it, right? Right here we see them talking to each other about it 22 years later. They say one to another. But actually they say to each other, we are guilty. We're guilty over our brother. When we sold him and he was begging us. And we didn't listen to him. Therefore, this is all happening to us, tit for tat. This is our punishment for what we did to our brother. Look, my friends, Orah Hayim right now is going to go into a very beautiful, deep dive, explaining this introspection that the brothers had of why this is happening to them. Why are they getting thrown into jail? The whole world's coming for food, no problem. All of a sudden, a few Jews come for food, spies, why is this happening to us? Why all the anti-Semitism, right? What do we do? Look what the Orah Hayim says. Tevat aval en la mashma'ut. The word, first of all, he asks questions. Aval doesn't fit, but we are guilty. Okay. And also, when we say asher ra'inu, right? What does it mean? Lemor asher ra'inu. By seeing our brothers, right? Inasmuch as we saw his heartfelt anguish, we paid no heed. Why do they speak so much? They should have just said, we are guilty concerning our brother. Right? We're guilty for what happened with our brother. I think everyone in that room knows what they did to their brother. Why do they elaborate? We're guilty for our brother. When we sold him, he was begging us and we didn't pay attention. Right? Why the elaboration? And also, they don't even mention the sale. They say we're guilty for what we did to our brother when he was begging us. Not once did they use the word mechira. The whole sentence. Not once do they say we're guilty for the sale. These are all Orah Hayim's questions. Now I'm sure you heard some of these questions before, and I'm sure you're even thinking of maybe answers. I could sense it in some of your facial expressions that you're thinking many answers to these questions. But let's see today Orah Hayim over here. I never saw this. I never saw what I'm about to tell you. Ulai, really the brothers had already, I'm going to read what he says. The brothers already debated the cause of their suffering. And the Torah is only recording the conclusion of the conversation. Look what's going on over here. The brothers are saying as follows. They were deliberating whether the reason for this trouble was the sale of Yosef. Right? Right away, the brothers, they're very righteous people. The moment something bad happens, immediately they start wondering, is this from God? Right? Look what he says. The first thought, the first place their brain went to, of why are we guilty, is because of the sale of Yosef. That's the first place they went to. But then they dismissed that reason. Why? They felt zero guilt in selling him. Halachically, he was liable to death. Selling him was actually kindness. Selling Yosef was them being righteous. Really, we should kill you, Yosef. If you remember last week, we spoke about this. Yosef, in their eyes, was a murderer. He's trying to pursue them. By not killing him, they were actually being very kind. We'll just hand you into the police. You're very lucky. I should kill you. I'm not going to kill you because I'm a nice guy. The brothers saw their sale as kindness. So therefore, they concluded that they're suffering right now with this man who's putting them in jail. It couldn't be a punishment for the sale. Okay? So selling Yosef, not a problem. Okay, so then maybe, you know what, let's go process of elimination. Maybe we're being punished for causing pain to our dad. Okay, so Yosef himself is guilty. But there was a ripple effect that it caused anguish to our father. So maybe this is a punishment for that, for giving tsa'ar to Yaakov Avinu. But he says, Adrabah, but that also can't be. It can't be that God's punishing us here for causing anguish to our dad. Because davar ze yosif lo machov. Because us not going back home is going to add to our father's anguish. If Hashem's really concerned about our father's anguish for selling Yosef, so why would he punish us by giving our father more anguish? What did Yaakov do wrong? Punish us, don't punish our father. Okay. Right? Ve'asher al ken lo matzu avon. So they're going down the list and they can't find a single thing they did wrong of why God is punishing them now. With this over here cruel ruler. So they must have said as follows: Aval Hashemim asher ra'inu. They said, you know why we're being punished? We're not being punished for the sale, but we are nevertheless guilty concerning our brother, inasmuch as we saw the anguish of his soul when he pleaded with us and we paid no heed. Perush, meaning the brothers felt guilty only possible explanation of why this is all happening is for one reason and one reason only. Shal kol panim hayalarahem rahem alav. Really, we were right in selling him, but maybe we should have still had mercy on him when we saw him pleading with us because his life was in danger, and instead we ignored his pleas. We were cruel, distasteful conduct for the righteous people. The brothers are realizing the sale is not the problem. Problem was our brother was begging us and crying. Where's the mercy? Where's the mercy? You hear a guy crying, please, give me one more chance. Please, guys, don't do this. And therefore, the brothers concluded, all of this is happening not because of the sale, but because where's the pity for someone crying out in need? Okay, that's one explanation. Or Yitzeh, or perhaps the verse is saying the following: Lihiyot shera'u kulam yahad ba'u lemishmar. Look at this one. The brothers are seeing that they're all being put in jail. Hashvu bedatam. They start wondering, who is the cause of this misfortune? What's the reason? Lihiyot shemicher Yosef haya leot benenehem. For sure, the obvious place for them to begin looking was the sale of Yosef. But when they looked at the sale, they said it can't be the sale. Mitzad Reuven, because Reuven wasn't involved in the sale. If you remember, Reuven was taking care of his father. So it can't be guilty for the sale of Yosef, because he wasn't amongst the sale. So it can't be this is because of the sale. Or else, why is Reuven being punished? Why is he being thrown into jail too? Therefore, they were forced to say that the guilt, the reason that all 10 brothers are being punished, what were we all participants in? All 10 of us. We were all participants in putting him in the pit. That we were all guilty. If the problem was the sale, then Reuven wasn't there. But we're guilty rather because we saw him begging. And in that, Reuven was equally guilty in this matter. Actually, it was his idea to throw him in the pit. When Yosef was begging, please don't. At what point of the story did that happen? Please don't, Or Haim says, please don't throw me in the pit. And that Reuven heard. Reuven was there, he was present in the throwing of the pit. And therefore, Yosef was begging, guys, there's snakes, there's scorpions, it's dark in there, there's foul air, right? I could fall, I could get hurt, I could die from hunger, thirst. Yitin kololahim. He was begging them, don't throw me in the pit. Velo shamu, and they didn't listen. Ubazeh yad Reuven in mahem. And for this, Reuven was participating with them. And therefore, the brothers concluded that the problem wasn't the sale, because then why would Reuven be punished? Rather, the problem was throwing him in the pit when he was begging not to. And that Reuven is equally guilty. Wow. Okay. But Ora Hayim now, just one more piece, because on this pasuk, he goes on and he explains as follows. He says, very, very beautiful. Everything that we said till now is only if the brothers had this conversation after they were put into jail. But if you say this conversation was only if this conversation was only after one of them was put in jail, that the rest could go home in peace to their father. So why were they not moved to worry about the sinful way they treated their brother until now? Meaning everything here is only if you say one guy was guilty. If you say all 10 were guilty, so this was the conversation. But if it was only one guy thrown into jail, then you have to explain it a little bit differently. Says the Ora Hayim like this, and it ties into what he said last week. Remember what he said last week. Look at this. Hashvu ki adam ba'al behira v'ratzon lehara. In the beginning, the brothers, they didn't really think much into this. Because the brothers know people have free will. Remember what we said last week about free will? Ora Hayim ties into that. And therefore, here's this evil man, this dictator, this ruler who has this, ego trip. He's filled with power. He has all this food, and he's just taking advantage of us, and he's a bad guy. So I don't have to think too deeply into it. Why is he throwing us into jail? Why is Hashem doing this to me? It's not Hashem. People have free will. He's a bad guy. Again, he's consistent to what he said last week, that people have free will. And therefore, our sin here, our punishment here, is not because of anything of Yosef. Don't read too deeply into it. Because again, they felt that Yosef anyways was guilty for doing what he did to them. However, when he said, but once Yosef says, let one of your brothers be imprisoned, and they did this, they had to single out one of them to remain in Egypt. Then they were moved they realized this is very interesting. This is very similar. We're picking one brother. We have to pick one brother to put in jail. This was deja vu. Was there another time that we had to pick one brother and threw him into jail? This aroused in them feelings of once upon a time what they did to Yosef. And then they realized that maybe their mistreating him was the cause of this misfortune. Right? And Kvar Rashamti, I already told you in the past, that a sin bears fruit that resembles it. There's a rabbi say, Teshalem leish k'ma'asehu. God repays someone like his actions. Similarly here, when the brothers saw, the brothers were guilty of causing Yosef pain, and now their hearts ached over the pain of their imprisoned brother Shimon. Now when they saw how clear the resemblance was to the story of Yosef, they started wondering, maybe this is not just this guy's cruelty. Maybe Hashem's talking to us. Meaning the brothers realized that, of course, people have free will. But when there's a striking resemblance, there's something that I once did that I was guilty of, then this is God's way of trying to talk to me. Not only that, but he says furthermore, who was the guy that was put in jail? Shimon. Really, he says over here another idea, that Yosef took Shimon. And whose idea was it to do bad to Yosef? I know we think it was all the brothers, but really, Vayomru Isha Lahiv, it was really Shimon's idea. The pasuk says that one brother told his other brother, right? Let's get rid of this guy Yosef. And whose idea must it have been? It couldn't have been Reuven. Reuven didn't want to kill him. So the next brother was Shimon, and Shimon's idea it was to kill him. And so they're seeing over here, if Shimon's, what are the odds? Out of all 10 brothers, the only guy that gets thrown into jail is Shimon. Must be God sending a message to us through Shimon, because really it was his idea to sell Yosef. Either way, there's a lot to unpack over here. There's a lot going on in these psukim. Realize how deep, my friends, the story is. We read it, there's layers and layers and layers and layers. And this is all one interpretation, one commentary. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful to see how rich, how beautiful our Torah is. Many lessons I think we could take and apply for ourselves. But either way, we'll stop over here. Everyone have a wonderful day. Have a Chodesh Tov, Chanukah Sameach, and hopefully we'll see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.